Well, the IEC says it was notified by the Tshwane Metro manager about a vacancy in the Metro following news of Makwarela's disqualification in the last few hours. Well, this was from yesterday, in fact. We can now speak to the former IEC Commissioner, Terry Tselane, to get a better sense of how this process works. Mr. Tselane, a very good evening to you. Welcome to News at Prime. So, in the event that a councillor was declared insolvent, which would bar them basically, or bar a person from becoming a councillor to begin with, how are those records kept, and whose duty is it to report such an issue?
Good evening to you and to your viewers, and thank you very much for having me. Firstly, when a political party contests the election, there are three things that they've got to do. Firstly, they've got to express an interest to participate in an election, and secondly, that they've got to pay a certain amount to participate in those elections, and the third requirement is that they've got to submit a list of the political parties. Now, attached to that list of a political party, it's a form that is signed by each and every candidate. That form will have the photo as well as the ID copy of that candidate. But there is a commitment that is made by a candidate for that political party that they are not disqualified in terms of the Constitution or any other law from participating in the elections and being candidates in an election. Now, you may be aware also that in terms of the Constitution, there are three requirements that prohibit a person from participating in the elections. One is that you should not actually have been declared insolvent by a court of law. And secondly, that you've got to be of a sound mind. And the third one is that you've got to be a citizen or a South African citizen. Now, if a person is not qualified or is disqualified in terms of those aspects of the Constitution, it means that person should not really have been a candidate in the first instance.
And in terms of the declaration, I mean, I don't know if you're able to hear COPE spokesperson Dennis Bloem speaking from a national level, shocked, disappointed, now going to launch an investigation into whether this declaration was made or not and how. But whose duty would it have been to do that in the submission of documents to the IEC before the election? Would it have been a political party at city or provincial level that is best placed to do that?
When the provision within the Electoral Act was actually made, it was largely because the IEC would not have the capacity to investigate each and every candidate of a political party or even independent candidates that are participating in the election. That's why the legislation makes it obligatory on a political party to make sure that there is compliance. And the fact that a candidate from a political party actually does sign that form, and that form makes it clear and it says, I am not prohibited by the Constitution or any other law to participate in this process. So it means that particular person is supposed to make sure that the statement that they're making is not false, because if it is false, again, it is another contravention of the Electoral Act, particularly what is referred to as prohibited conduct. So a candidate is obliged, has got to sign a form, and in terms of that form, that candidate says, to the best of his or her knowledge, he or she is not disqualified from being a candidate in an election.
Dr. Makwarela's lawyers have now issued or sent a letter to the city manager in Tshwane saying that he was in fact declared a rehabilitated insolvent. They claim that the issue has merely been with him finding the relevant court order to that effect. But at a more technical level, for people who aren't aware of the runnings of the system, why is insolvency something that basically prevents someone from running as a public office bearer, as a councillor?
Well, firstly, it is part of the Constitution. It is in the Constitution. So it is part of our legal framework, and therefore there's got to be compliance with it. But I suppose the drafter of our Constitution wanted to make sure that a person who is participating as a candidate or as a public representative must be a person who is beyond reproach, a person who will obviously be dealing with the resources of the state, and therefore should not actually be found wanting in respect to that.
Mm. And in the event that a person is not properly vetted or they fall through the cracks, as is alleged to have now happened with the former mayor of Tshwane, who says he's still the mayor, by the way, whose duty is it then to make sure that once people are in office, that the paperwork is in order, and where there are issues, they are flagged and the relevant people then officially disqualified?
Well, firstly, it's the responsibility of the individual, as I've indicated, in terms of the law. But secondly, it is the responsibility of a political party that has actually nominated that particular person to be a candidate to make sure that that person is in compliance with all the relevant legislation, including the Constitution.
All right, Terry Tselane, good to speak to you. Thank you for your time tonight.